Well, I would say from growing up, having a grandfather that basically came from nothing, but managed to create some wealth for himself and ultimately for his family, had a very large impact on me from the time when I was a kid. I remember growing up and we'd be visiting with them, and, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the afternoon, couldn't really speak to him at that time. There were many shows about Wall Street, Kiplinger, specifically when, data wasn't as easy to get, information certainly wasn't as easy to get, and he would utilize whatever resources possible in order to get information. And he wound up being a very successful investor in the market. And along the way, as I grew up, I began to realize that, it could really have a meaningful impact on people's lives and enable them to have some levels of financial freedom that they may never have been able to have without investing. So for me specifically, I think for folks, it's different for everyone, right? What we try to do is match a client's goals, objectives, and needs to what we do on their behalf, whether it be the financial planning, the portfolio management, where I play a very specific role. And for me, it's enabling people to have the financial freedom to do what's important to them, whether it's to help their family, whether it's philanthropy, whatever their cause may be. We're trying to help them achieve that by aligning their wealth, but really aligning the management and their goals with their long-term purpose. So I think the combined experience and diverse background of the founding partners is one thing that makes Evoke quite unique. We all come from different background and experiences in how we got here. And then more importantly, as, kind of this independent investment firm where, we act as fiduciaries on behalf of our clients, we also manage the assets in-house instead of farming that management to outside firms, which I think is quite unique. And we do it through utilizing a lot of resources, a lot of third-party independent research, and a lot of assistance from our partners as well, Fidelity being one of them, Kesher Investment Management, another one. But we have an open architecture and we're free to go outside to get the best thought leadership of the entirety of the financial world. And that's where we utilize some subscription-based platforms for the best-in-class third-party independent research firms. Well, I think what we try to do that's also different is educate our clients so that when the next COVID or 2008 financial crisis or something like that comes down the pike, that number one, they're prepared, and number two, they know not just that they've lived through it before, but they lived through it with us. And they knew the messaging they were getting during that process. Look, it's never comfortable to live through big drawdowns in the market, 20, 30, 2008, 55%. But if you stick to your discipline, history proves you're always going to come out in an improved state on the other side. And just to give you one example of that, one of the things that we preach to our clients is staying invested. And we do that by managing their risk while staying invested. But a very interesting statistic, for example, if you invested $10,000 in the S&P in 1990 and just left it invested, by the end of 2022, you would have had a little over $101,000. So basically a 10 times return. And this is over a long cycle where we live through some of those dramatic, meaningful declines. Yet if you miss just the 20 best days of performance and being out of that market, instead of having $101,000, you would only have $27,000. So the whole concept of staying invested, allowing your wealth management team to manage your risk through the portfolio allocation is something that we preach quite often. So that's a great question. And I think the answer to that, and I've thought about it recently actually, is especially when you're young, assuming you have some access to money and capital, is just the little things. Like if you could throw in $50 extra a month or a week into some type of investment savings account instead of, you could always find, if you're employed, even if you're in your 20s, you may be struggling a little bit, but you can always find that $50, $100. And if you actually took that and invested it and kept that discipline, even in addition to contributing to a 401k and whatnot, but those little increments when you're young and you compound that over decades, comes out to extremely meaningful amounts of money. Well, I would say I think a lot of folks perhaps think, portfolio management, asset management, financial planning is kind of not necessary or kind of cookie cutter or it's just not for them for whatever reason. And I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I think everybody should have some type of financial plan. Now, whether they feel they need professional management, which I would certainly recommend for various reasons, or just a path to know how to get to what they want to achieve with a roadmap via a financial plan, I think is extremely important. Because how else do you gauge whether you are in line for retirement or whatever those longer term goals are, college education, whatever that might be?